Would you jump into a roaring storm drain to save a child you only knew from a wave and a smile? The scream splits the afternoon like glass. Help! Mateo! Someone save him! Thunder rolls over Polanco. Rain lashes down in sheets so thick the street looks like a river, swallowing leaves, trash, and now a terrified 6-year-old boy. People gather around the gaping hole where a cast-iron cover should be. The floodwater has ripped it free, turning the drain into a black throat, gulping everything it can. A dozen well-dressed residents hover, hands at their mouths, phones clutched, words tumbling over themselves. Call the fire department. Where is his father? How can this be happening? While the water climbs and the boy thrashes and slips under, then claws his way back up, gasping, only to be dragged another meter away. Mateo! A woman cries. God, someone, please! Then a bucket hits the tile with a clatter. A young woman in a blue cleaning uniform kicks off her shoes. Her name is Jimena. She doesn't ask permission. She takes 2 running steps and drops into the mouth of the drain like a diver, and the cold slams into her like a punch. The current shoves into her chest and tries to roll her under, but she spreads her arms, finds her balance, and fights toward the child. Mateo! Her voice is raw. Grit stings her eyes. Foul water fills her mouth. The boy is clinging to a pipe around the bend, his thin arms trembling. Tia Jimena, help me, he whimpers. Not really her niece, not really her anything, but that's what he always calls her when he sees her in the hallway, and she makes fish faces to make him laugh. I'm here. She gets a hand under his chest. Arms around my neck. Don't let go. He locks on like a shipwrecked sailor to a bit of wood. Their heads bob at different heights. The current rips hair from her face and tries to peel him off her body. She kicks. She breathes in shock and filthy river, and still she kicks. Each stroke back to the surface is a negotiation with fear. 3 seconds more, 2 seconds, another lunge, almost there. Hands reach down to them. A man jumps in waist-deep and braces. A woman slides along the tile belly down and stretches out a mop handle for Jimena to grab. She gets a knee up, a palm. The boy's small weight hangs on her like an anchor pulling her back toward the dark. Then she's up. He's up. They're both up, coughing and shaking, a chorus of gas falling over them like rain. You're safe, Jimena whispers, pressing her forehead to the child's wet hair. You're safe, Mateo. He blinks at her. The first thing he does is smile. Thank you, Tia Jimena. A black car slews to a stop at the curb, its tires hissing over flooded asphalt. A tall man bolts out, tie askew, eyes scanning for the only thing that matters. Mateo. Senor Valdez, the building administrator says, breathless, gesturing. He fell into the drain. She saved him. The man, Sebastian, stares at Jimena like he's seeing a miracle and can't make sense of it. This soaked young woman, sludge streaking her cheeks, hair plastered to her skin, cradling his son with a tenderness that belongs to family. What's your name? He asks, voice unsteady. Jimena Morales. I work here. You saved my son. It's not really a question. It's disbelief, awe, gratitude collapsing into one. Sirens wail down the avenue. The boy shivers and sags, exhaustion overtaking him. There's only one thought left that matters. The hospital. In the harsh light of emergency, Jimena tries to slip away. She's dripping. She thinks she doesn't belong, but Sebastian's hand is gentle on her arm. Stay. Please. He might need you. I'm all mud, she whispers. You saved my son, he says. You belong anywhere he belongs. So she stays, in a metal chair, clothes clinging, chills biting down to bone. She waits with a man whose life just snapped in half and was set back into place by a stranger. An hour later, Dr. Adrian Campos pads out, eyes kind and tired. He's going to be fine, he says. A big scare, some cold, a few hours of observation, then home. Sebastian's relief is so fierce he has to sit. He closes his eyes like he's praying. Thank God. There's one more thing, monsieur, the doctor adds, voice quieting. Your boy lost his mother, didn't he? Sebastian nods, jaw tightening. Trauma dislodges old grief. He'll need steady emotional support for a while. The doctor glances past Sebastian to the young woman trying to make herself small against the wall. He asked for someone. Tia Jimena? Sebastian turns. Their eyes meet. Jimena startled. Sebastian certain. Can you go to him? Please. She goes. The boy's small face lights up like dawn when she steps in. You stayed, he says, almost a sigh. Of course I stayed. She sits. He reaches out and hugs her with all the strength left in his thin arms, as if anchoring himself to the world. She tells him a story about a brave little fish who swims into the darkest place to bring another little fish back to the light. He listens, lashes drooping. When sleep finally finds him, it's soft. She gets up to leave, takes 3 steps, and hears someone say her name softly in the hall. Thank you, Sebastian says, for everything. I don't know how to. There aren't words. She shakes her head. Anyone would have jumped. No, he says, eyes steady. That's a nice lie we tell ourselves so we feel better. There were 20 people watching. 1 person moved. She looks down, embarrassed by praise that feels too big and too bright. I care about him, she says. He's special. He is. The smallest smile touches his mouth, and today I saw him smile back. Sebastian, a deep voice interrupts, heavy with authority. Where is my grandson? The corridor seems to contract. A man in a perfect suit, late 60s, silver hair, immaculate, serves the scene with an expression that could cut glass. He takes in the damp uniform, the flecks of grit on polished floors, the fact that his son is standing very close to an employee outside a public hospital room, and his mouth says one thing while his eyes say another. This is Jimena, Sebastian says, the steel in his voice surprising even himself. She saved Mateo. The elder Valdez, Hector, gives Jimena a look that evaluates and discards. I see, he says, and the 2 words carry a judgment he doesn't bother to voice. Jimena feels the chill move inside her. It's not the air conditioning. It's class. The kind that can turn gratitude into suspicion with a glance. She leaves. In the noise of the hospital, in the echo of the beeping machines, in the stark white of a bashed-together family, something delicate and bright has started. And someone is already trying to stamp it out. 2 days later, Mateo is back home. The nightmares come. He cries out for the woman who pulled him from the dark. Tia Jimena, he sobs, small fingers searching the sheets. At the mansion in Lomas de Chapultepec, where the floors shine and the hedges are clipped into submission, and the family name hangs on the walls in oil and gold, Hector has already made a phone call to a nanny agency. He uses words like experience, discretion, traditional family values. He means keep the help in their place. By afternoon, he is in the lobby of the Alameda residences, shoes clicking, eyes sharp. He finds Jimena coiling a vacuum cord, and he moves closer with a smile that doesn't reach his gaze. Senor Valdez, she says, polite, unsure. Miss Morales, he says, smoothing a cuff. First, let me thank you. You were brave, but now that the excitement is over, things should return to normal. What do you mean by normal? Her voice is careful. You do your work, he says, and we attend to our family. Separate worlds. It's better that way. She understands. He's asking her to vanish from the boy's life like the whole thing was a strange dream. He's not asking, he's telling. I only want to be sure he's all right, she whispers. He is. The smile tightens. And it would be best if you kept this conversation between us. Sebastian is very busy. He doesn't need distractions. It lands like a slap. Distraction. That's what he calls her kindness. When Sebastian appears that evening to pick up documents he forgot, he finds Jimena in the garage, tucking away cleaning supplies, more far away than he's ever seen her. Mateo's better, he says. He won't stop talking about you. She nods but doesn't look up. He's a special boy. You're different today, he says. What happened? Nothing, she lies. It's just, children get attached. Then they hurt when people leave. Maybe it's better if I keep my distance. Who told you to say that? It is out before he can stop it. He knows his father's voice, even when he can't hear it. No answer. A shadow passes across the wall as someone steps from behind a column. Sebastian, Hector says mildly. I thought you had already gone. Sebastian looks from his father to Jimena and back again. He is not stupid. He sees it. He sees all of it. The nightmares get worse. One morning after another jolt awake, Mateo clings to his father and asks the question that caves a man's chest in from the inside. Did Tia Jimena stop loving me? Sebastian swallows 1,000 complicated answers and says the only thing he can. She loves you. She's just busy. Then why did she look sad and run away when I waved to her? The boy's honesty is a scalpel. That afternoon, it's done. It's decided. Sebastian walks to the play area where Jimena is sweeping leaves and says, Please, talk to me. He stands with the weight of a father and a man who is more and more certain of what he wants. Mateo needs you. He asked for you in the hospital before he asked for me. She blinks hard. I don't want to cause trouble. For whom? He takes a breath. For my father? Her hands tighten on the broom. She doesn't nod. She doesn't have to. A voice from down the path. Papa! Mateo is running, a prim nanny hurrying behind, scolding about rules, about decorum, about something nobody cares about right now. Mateo barrels into Jimena's legs, and she drops to her knees, wraps him up without thinking, because some responses are older than fear. Why don't you come to the house tonight? Sebastian suggests. Not a question. 6 o'clock, one story before bed. The nanny opens her mouth to remind everyone who pays her. Sebastian closes it for her. You're fired, he says evenly. Pack your things. The courtyard goes very quiet. Jimena's eyes shine wet. No one has ever defended me like that, she whispers, surprised by the sound of her own voice. Something softens in him. Something steadies. Then let this be the first time, he says. And up on a balcony, behind a pane of glass, Hector watches his careful order tilt and slide. He calls a blogger. He says words like fraud and opportunist, says it in a tone that lends his lies the smell of truth. He promises payment. He says, make it seem like an investigation. Anonymous sources. The public always loves to feel clever. That night, the phone in Jimena's small apartment rings with strangers' rage. Shame on you, one voice says. Leave that family alone, snarls another. Her sister, Daniela, calls and can barely get the words out. There's an article, she says. People are saying things. Ugly things. At the building, the shift supervisor tugs his mustache and says, I know you. I know this isn't you. But keep a low profile, okay? Let it blow over. It doesn't blow over, it swells. It rolls. Snickers cut off when she steps into elevators. The friendly cashier at the small shop won't meet her eyes. 2 residents stop talking abruptly when she enters the lobby, then pitch their voices lower but not low enough. After the 4th call that night, disappear, a man mutters and hangs up. Jimena sits on the edge of her bed with her hands knotted and thinks, maybe I should. Sebastian finds her at dawn by the service stairs, eyes tired, phone clenched in his fist with the open tab of a blog post burning his skin. I read it, he says, fury under glass. It's garbage. People believe it, she murmurs. Maybe I should stop coming by your place, at least for a while. Why should you pay for a lie? He asks, then stops. He's a businessman. He knows what gossip can do, that it flows around facts like water around rocks. If anyone calls again, he says, we go to the police. We file a report. She nods, but fear has already moved into the small space between her ribs and refuses to leave. Then Sebastian says something he didn't plan to say, the truth that was waiting behind his teeth. I want to know your world, he says softly, your home, your family. I want to understand you. You don't have to. I do, he says, because this matters to me. On Saturday, he rides with her to a neighborhood far from champagne and marble, and she shows him a house where small things are cared for and kept whole. Her mother, Lourdes, opens the door with a smile that warms like a stove. You're Mateo's father, she says, and the way she says father makes the word sound like a promise, not a job. Come in. There's a little boy on the floor working a puzzle, Javier, 4, the child of Jimena's sister. He flings himself against Jimena with uncomplicated love. Did you bring a friend, Tia? This is Sebastian, she says. Javier considers the tall man seriously, then nods like a judge. The evening smells like beans and tomatoes and frying onions. The table holds more food than money would suggest, and laughter fits into spaces that money can't fill at all. When her father died, Lourdes says quietly, she got a job the same week. She was 17. She helped me pay the bills. When my other daughter needed help, Jimena moved them in. That's who she is. Sebastian listens and thinks, no blog can shrink this. No whisper can stain it. The room swells with stories, not of sacrifice as a posture, but as a habit. He leaves with the taste of tortillas and an ache that feels suspiciously like hope. Outside at the bus stop, under a low streetlight, he takes Jimena's hand without drama. You can count on me, he says. She looks at their hands, then at his face. What she sees there is clear and frightening and good. Thank you, she says, voice almost too soft to hear. Back in Polanco, someone else is watching things closely. Her name is Alicia. She's been scrubbing marble and chrome for 5 years now, to the beat of time and money that never sink. Her daughter needs a surgery the system keeps postponing. Hector notices. He sidles up to her in the hallway and says he might be able to help someday, his tone silky with promises and price tags. Fear and need tilt inside Alicia, and when you've been afraid and needed for too long, you can get dizzy enough to lean in the wrong direction. The rumor storm isn't enough. Hector wants a spectacle. He wants proof, even if he has to manufacture it. Days pass in a haze of careful kindness and uncareful malice. Ophelia from the resident committee starts sentences with, I don't like to gossip, but, and then does. A blogger named Rodrigo publishes a second piece with a headline designed to trigger the exact chord of self-righteousness that gets the most shares. Anonymous calls multiply. Jimena marks down license plates in a little notebook, noting who spits near her cart and who gives her a stiff nod and calls it grace. Mateo sleeps better when she is there. He laughs more after she leaves. He clings less in the morning. If healing were a plant, you could see it unfurling. Then the trap closes. A bracelet goes missing in the tower. Platinum, small diamonds, the kind of jewelry you say is subtle because money needs fresh words to dress itself in. A resident sweeps the jewelry box with her eyes, doesn't find what she hopes to find, and her irritation looks around for a body to wear. In the staff room, Alicia's face is pale. She has a small velvet pouch in her apron that isn't hers. She tells herself she's only holding it for a minute. Search the carts, Hector says mildly to the administrator, standing back just enough to look uninvolved. Someone unlocks Jimena's cabinet. Fingers root through brushes, rags, bottles. When the pouch hits the light, everyone inhales at the same time. Jimena looks at it like you might look at a snake tucked into your breakfast, too astonished to react. That is not mine, she says, not with outrage, with bewilderment. The resident committee convenes itself in whispers right there in the corridor. Some people say unfortunate. Some say inevitable. Words like trust and discretion are tossed into the air like confetti. It's all very polite, which is how some people prefer their cruelty. Call security, someone says, and the police. Sebastian is in an elevator when his phone rings. He hears 3 words, Jimena, police, stolen, and the floor drops out of his stomach. He sprints. In the lobby, a small crowd has arranged itself into a semicircle around a single person. It's odd how often that arrangement resembles worship or a gallows. Jimena stands alone, a dozen eyes on her, none of them kind except one from the far edge, Alicia's, wide and wet. "What's happening?" Sebastian demands, moving between the eyes and the target. "Your friend was found with stolen property," Ophelia says, lips pursed. "Show me." He doesn't look at Ophelia again. He looks at the pouch. He looks at Jimena, whose face shows something worse than fear betrayal, as if the world itself has moved and left her standing in midair. "This wasn't in your cart this morning," Sebastian says. "No," she answers. "It wasn't." "Who had access?" he asks the supervisor, who glances at Alicia reflexively, because guilt, like a magnet, shifts your gaze before your brain can block the move. In that moment, everything inside Alicia collapses. She bursts. "It was me!" she cries, hands flying to her mouth. "Don Hector, he said there would be money for my girl's surgery if I put it." She can't finish. Hector's face doesn't move, as if nothing anyone says can touch him, as if truth were a rumor beneath him. "This is absurd," he says lightly. "I barely know this woman. Are we really going to take the word of someone who steals for money?" "Who offered you money?" Sebastian asks, eyes still on Alicia. He doesn't say his father's name. He doesn't have to. Alicia trembles. Her fear is a creature that lives under her bed. It has lived there for years. Today it crawls out into the light and whimpers. "He said he could help me. He said it would be a favor." Tears spill hot and fast. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Jimena." Silence ripples outward through the lobby. It arrives in front of Hector, who has played enough games in his life to know when he has to pretend to be offended for the sake of form. "This is slander," he announces. "Shall I call my lawyer now or later?" "Call him," Sebastian says, and the way he says it makes a few people look at him for the first time since this began. He turns to the administrator. "Check the security cameras from the staff room. Check the hallway. If this bracelet moved today, there is an image. Pull phone logs for the blogger who wrote those articles. Subpoena if you have to." He looks around at the neighbors who have traded kindness for gossip. "And maybe while we wait, we all ask ourselves why we were so eager to believe the worst about the woman who jumped into a flood to save a child we all love." While the footage is retrieved, the room rearranges itself. Eye contact shifts. Murmurs decay. People suddenly remember laundry upstairs, calls to make, meetings to attend. Guilt is also a magnet. It repels quickly. 10 minutes later, the video plays on a tablet, bright as a courtroom spotlight. Alicia lifts the cabinet door. Her hands shake. She places the velvet pouch among the bottles and rags. And behind her, 2 steps back, the reflection of a man in a glass panel, just a sliver of a suit, the corner of a jaw, enough for anyone who has ever stared at that face to know it. Hector doesn't flinch. He has lived too long in rooms where his word is the air itself. He can't imagine a world where that air isn't enough to breathe. "Coincidence," he says. "Distortion. You all know how these cameras are. And the word of a thief? Come now." But the word comes from the smallest person in the room, which is sometimes how truth travels fastest. "Grandpa?" Mateo stands beside the elevator, hair sticking up from sleep, shoes untied. He has seen enough. He knows enough. He might be 6, but love and fear taught him what adult language couldn't. "Did you make them be mean to Tia Jimena?" The lobby holds its breath. Hector glances toward his grandson. He has a chance in this second to choose the boy over the mirror. He misses it. "You don't understand, Mateo," he says, tone condescending with the reflex of a lifetime. But Mateo does understand. Children understand more than we want to believe. His small face tightens. He reaches for Jimena's hand and folds his fingers around hers like he did in the hospital. "She saved me," he says, voice clear. It is not a statement anyone can argue with without revealing something ugly about themselves. Sebastian inhales, then exhales, and the decision he made in pieces reassembles into a single whole. He turns to his father. "Dad," he says. The word lands like a gavel. "I'm done pretending we want the same things. You will apologize to Jimena and to Alicia. You will retract whatever you set in motion online. And you will not come between my son and the person who makes him feel safe ever again. Hector's mouth tightens. You're going to choose a cleaning girl over your own father? Sebastian's reply is gentle and devastating. I'm choosing integrity over fear. I'm choosing my son's well-being. I'm choosing what's right. He looks past his father and into the eyes of the people who share his elevators and pay his HOA fees and pass judgments like hors d'oeuvres. And I'm choosing to stop caring what any of you think about that. Hector's silence is more eloquent than anything he can say. Pride stiffens his spine, but it doesn't warm him. Pride never does. He turns and leaves because that's the only move left that feels like control. The police arrive. Statements are taken. Alicia tells her story 3 times, each repetition loosening the knot in her chest by a millimeter. The resident whose bracelet went missing takes in the scene. The confession, the video, the man leaving with his chin high as if the room had just insulted him, and she decides to be kinder than she was an hour ago. I want to drop the matter, she says. The bracelet is back. That's enough. Maybe we all forget today happened. We don't forget, Jimena answers softly. We learn. That night in a quiet kitchen, Jimena pours Alicia a cup of cinnamon tea and slips an envelope across the table. I spoke to a foundation, she says. They'll expedite your daughter's surgery. Anonymous donation. No strings. Alicia covers her face with her hands and sobs. Not the thin tears of fear, but the heavy ones of relief. I'm sorry, she says again, even though she has said it 20 times. I was scared. So was I, Jimena says. Maybe that's how they get us. They pit our fears against each other. Let's not let them anymore. There is a clause in every story where a heart decides whether it will harden to survive or soften to live. Jimena chooses soft, which in this world is the bravest thing you can do. Over the next week, the building does an odd dance. People who were loud go quiet. People who were quiet say hello. Ophelia brings a cake to the staff room and leaves it without a note. It is dry and too sweet. Everyone eats it anyway. The blogger posts a retraction, which is never as widely read as the lie. That is the way of things. But it exists, a small bit of truth pinned to a wall where it can be found. Hector does not show his face for days. When he finally does, he carries his courtesy like a shield. He shakes hands, he makes calls. He pretends he is unchanged. He is not. A man can lose a son in more ways than one. Sebastian doesn't gloat. He doesn't grandstand. He comes home from work, takes off his jacket, and sits on the carpet with his boy and a box of mismatched Legos. He inserts love into small moments like light through blinds. He texts Jimena. Story time? He doesn't say, I miss you. He doesn't have to. Sometimes Jimena reads to Mateo on the couch, her voice steady, her presence even steadier. Sometimes they cook together, plain rice, scrambled eggs, little things made big by laughter. Sometimes Mateo falls asleep with a hand on Jimena's sleeve, as if making sure the world doesn't slip. One evening, after Mateo is asleep, Sebastian washes a mug that isn't his and stares out a window at the city that keeps its secrets in glass towers. Every time I think of that drain, he says, drying his hands. Every time I imagine the moment you went under and disappeared, I can't breathe for a second. He pauses. I don't want to spend another second of my life on people who would have let my son drown. That's not fair, she says, because she is incapable of letting bitterness go unchallenged. People were afraid. I was afraid too. You moved anyway, he says. Maybe that's the only difference that matters. A month passes. The boy's nightmares fade like bruises. Jimena laughs more easily. Alicia sends photos from a hospital room where a girl with brave eyes and a pink bandage on her arm gives a thumbs up. The residents committee drafts a new policy about crisis response and compassion training for staff, and the irony is not lost on anyone. One morning, as spring edges in and the jacarandas threaten to explode into purple everywhere, Hector knocks on Sebastian's door. He waits. When the door opens, he looks older. It's not his hair. It's that something rigid inside him has cracked enough to ache. I've made many mistakes, he says, not stepping over the threshold. I'm not here to justify them. Then why are you here? Sebastian asks, not unkindly. Because my grandson loves someone, Hector says. And because love didn't leave our family when your wife died. It just moved. I didn't want to see it. That's on me. He swallows. I'm sorry. It is not an apology that erases what came before. Apologies rarely are. It is a beginning. Sometimes beginnings are enough to turn. Come in, Sebastian says softly. Hector steps inside. He looks at Jimena, where she sits at the table coloring with Mateo. He inclines his head. Miss Morales, he says. Jimena. She inclines hers back and says, Don Hector. She returns to the picture of a fish that is definitely the bravest fish in any ocean. Trust, like bone, takes time to knit. Later, after dinner, Hector watches his grandson sleep. He moves his hand toward the boy's hair and stops, then sets it lightly on the blanket instead. Your mother, he says, not looking up, would have hated how I behaved. Then let's do better in her name, Sebastian replies. At the door, Hector pauses. You'll never forgive me completely, he says, not self-pitying, just realistic. I'll forgive you enough to keep trying, Sebastian answers. That's more than we had a month ago. On a Sunday, Jimena takes Mateo to the park. They sit on a warm bench and share a paper bag of sliced mango dusted with chili. A boy with a kite runs by and the kite dips and swerves. Lost and found. Lost and found. You flew, Mateo says suddenly, mouth sticky with mango. When you went into the water, you flew and brought me back. I swam, she says, smiling. You flew, he insists, as only the very young and the very certain can. You're my hero. She shakes her head. Heroes are just people who decide not to wait for someone else. Then you're that, he says. You're my not waiter. She laughs a bright and unexpected, and the man watching them from the path, his heart standing outside his body like a fool, falls the last half-inch into love. He walks over. He sits. He doesn't make a speech. He doesn't promise the future. He just offers something simple enough to hold up to the light and not be embarrassed by it. Stay for dinner, he says. Stay as long as you like. Stay when it's hard. She looks at him. She looks at Mateo. She looks at her own hands, which have always known work and now will need to learn another language entirely. Okay, she says. I'll stay. Years later, when Mateo is tall and his smile is easy, and he doesn't wake in the night gulping air, he will ask about that day in the rain. They will tell him the story the same way every time, not the neat, cleaned version, but the real one, the one with fear and strangers who didn't move, and one person who did, and a grandfather who tried to protect the wrong things and then learned to protect the right ones. They will tell him about a bracelet and a blog, and how lies spread fast, and how truth moves slower, but arrives with better company. They will tell him how love rearranged their house like furniture until everyone found a place to sit. And if you ask him, years from now, what a hero looks like, he will not point at a cape or a badge. He will point at a woman in a blue uniform with wet hair stuck to her face who jumped into a hole in the world because a child was there and he needed her. He will say, she didn't wait. He will say she flew.